So imagine you're just waiting at a traffic light on your daily commute. Your turn signal is clicking, the light turns green, and you start to make your left turn. You are doing everything right.
Right. Totally standard stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But suddenly, like filling your entire windshield, there is a motorcycle coming straight at you, head on, and the craziest part, the rider isn't even on the road.
Oh, wow. Where are they?
They are driving towards you on the unpaved pedestrian dirt curb just to, bypass traffic. So welcome to the Deep Dive, where we are looking at a commute where physics, geometry, and basic traffic laws are basically treated as mere suggestions.
Yeah, it creates this fascinating but terrifying scenario where a painted white line on the asphalt offers about as much physical protection as, a polite request.
It really does.
Yeah.
And you get behind the wheel, and without even signing up for it, you are dropped into an extreme survival game. So today we have our hands on a stack of incident logs that illustrate this perfectly.
And these aren't just, generic stats. They are incredibly detailed.
Yeah, it's a meticulous, almost cinematic collection of traffic and surveillance reports. They were recorded over the first half of July 2026 in Kerala, India. We are looking at data from major arteries, like NH66, and notoriously tight spots like Gumarajanta Lane.
Right, all documented in what the reporter actually dubbed a survivor's guide to road chaos, which is just a perfect title.
It really is. So the mission for this deep dive is to decode these logs. We want to extract some hard-won lessons in defensive driving and really to understand the bizarre psychology of human beings when they operate heavy machinery.
Because it is bizarre, honestly.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because reading through these reports, it feels less like reviewing standard traffic data and, a whole lot more like reading a script for a Jason Bourne action movie.
Oh, totally. The sheer volume of close calls definitely reads like a thriller. But beyond the shock value of these highly specific erratic maneuvers, there's a distinct psychological thread running through this data.
What kind of thread? Like a general disregard for rules?
Well, yes, but deeper. This entire stack of logs operates as a masterclass in why the concept of having the right of way is actually a deeply dangerous myth.
Wait, really? A myth?
Yeah, because it forces us to examine how we map our reality on the road. We really have to mentally prepare for the absolute unexpected rather than just, blindly following the painted lines.
I see. So let's start by looking at the most fundamental assumption a driver makes. When you pull up to an intersection and see a green light, you assume you can go, right?
Yeah, naturally. That's the core rule of the road.
Right. But if you cannot trust a green light, what can you actually trust? And this brings us back to that scenario I mentioned earlier. It's pulled directly from a July 10th log at Kumarachanta Lane.
Ah, yeah, the head-on near miss.
Exactly. The reporter gets the green light, commits to a legal left turn, starts moving into the mouth of the lane, and is suddenly inches away from a head-on collision with a Hero Honda Passion motorcycle.
And I think the defining element of that near miss isn't simply that someone ran a red light. Because, running a red light is a known variable. We all sort of watch out for that.
Sure. It happens all the time.
The real shock here comes from the spatial origin of the threat.
Right, because the biker was completely off the road. He was riding counterflow, coming from the opposite direction, and using an unpaved pedestrian curb just to shave, a few seconds off his trip?
Probably. It's wild.
And then he merges blindly into the path of a legally turning car. It's as if some drivers view traffic infrastructure the way a cat views a closed door. Not as a structural rule that exists for a reason, but as a personal insult that just has to be bypassed at all costs.
That is a brilliant analogy, actually. The cat in the door.
Thanks. And we see this total disregard for road geometry again at the MGM school signal on NH66. The log describes a V-pattern bottleneck. So there is a dedicated U-turn lane, and you queue up at the bottom of the V to turn.
Right, a standard traffic flow design.
But a driver in a Tata Tiago decides the geometry of the road simply doesn't apply to him.
Yeah, the log describes him executing what they call a drilling maneuver, which, frankly, tells us a lot about his mental state right there.
A drilling maneuver, that sounds aggressive.
Very. He isn't merging. He is actively forcing space where literally none exists.
Yeah, he squeezes past the reporter's car with a .50 meter clearance. Half a meter of space.
It's basically scraping the paint at that point.
Literally. He fakes going into that dedicated U-turn lane just to bypass the massive queue of traffic. And then he just blows straight ahead back into the main flow, completely ignoring the lane's actual physical purpose.
It's pure chaos.
So how are you supposed to function behind the wheel when basic geometry is totally ignored by the people around you?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it requires a complete paradigm shift in how we perceive driving. We are taught that traffic systems operate on shared social contracts, right?
Right, like red means stop, green means go.
Exactly. The painted arrows, the green lights, the curbs, they are all cognitive shortcuts. They only work if everyone collectively agrees to the illusion of the rules, which in turn lowers our cognitive load.
So we don't have to overthink every single intersection.
Precisely. We trust the green light so we don't have to calculate the trajectory of every single vehicle approaching us. But what these logs prove is that your legal right of way does absolutely nothing to stop physical momentum.
A green light doesn't create an invisible force field.
Right. To survive this, you have to employ a psychological concept known as driving for two.
Driving for two, so that implies you are responsible for the other person's vehicle as well as your own.
In a mental sense, yes. Defensive driving doesn't just mean following the rules perfectly yourself. It means actively predicting the behavior of the person who didn't read the manual.
That makes sense.
You aren't just piloting your car, you are continuously calculating the probability of the Tiago driver's impatience, or that Honda rider's total disregard for paved surfaces. You have to abandon the comfort of the social contract.
Wow, so you shift from being a rule follower to just a constant risk assessor,
Exactly.
which sounds incredibly taxing on the brain, to be honest. I mean, constantly assessing risk is exhausting enough when people are simply impatient. But we really need to look at what happens when impatience evolves into a total detachment from reality.
Oh, yeah. The distraction logs are terrifying.
Because it's one thing to aggressively bypass a traffic line. It is another thing entirely to ignore your physical surroundings completely. There's an incident here on the Anantapuri Hospital Service Road that takes this to a totally surreal level.
The auto rickshaw incident, right?
Yes. An auto rickshaw pulls out from a stand, steers directly in front of the reporter's car, and just stops dead at a sharp 45-degree angle. Yep. He completely blocks a live, active lane of traffic.
And naturally, we have to ask, what kind of mechanical failure or medical emergency caused a driver to just park horizontally across an active lane?
That's the thing. There was no emergency. He was entirely engrossed in scrolling on his mobile phone.
Just scroll.
Just scrolling. It was mounted on the dashboard, and his thumb was just flying. He didn't even look up at the road. And when he finally finished his little scrolling session, he executed a blind 360-degree loop right back to the stand he started from, without a single indicator.
Unbelievable.
But here's the detail that really stands out to me. This entire sequence, the 45-degree stop, the scrolling, the blind loop, it all happened directly underneath a live AI traffic surveillance camera.
And that detail is vital because it exposes the absolute limitation of technological deterrence.
And it isn't an isolated event either. Look at the July 13th log from the domestic airport road. A white Mahindra Scorpio is tailgating the reporter, honking aggressively.
Oh, I remember this one.
Right. And why are they tailgating? Because both the driver and the passenger are holding a mobile device up to the dashboard, just staring at a screen, completely distracted while moving at speed.
A distraction that very nearly resulted in a massive multi-vehicle pileup.
Exactly. Because just ahead in the active lane, an elderly pedestrian with a Hercules loading bicycle abruptly stepped off the curb. And he just turned his bicycle 360 degrees directly against the flow of traffic.
Which is just terrifying.
Yeah. The reporter only avoided hitting him because they had already slowed down defensively. But this raises a huge question for you to think about. We live in this era of smart cameras, AI surveillance, lane assist technology, and yet drivers treat live intersections like their living rooms.
Right.
So is technology actually making us safer, or is it just providing high-definition footage of our worst habits?
What's fascinating here is the psychological disconnect that modern vehicles create. We can call it the false sense of a pause button.
A pause button? How do you mean?
Think about the physical environment inside a modern car cabin. You are sitting in a highly engineered, climate-controlled, sound-dampened bubble.
Yeah, it's very comfortable.
Exactly. The suspension absorbs the bumps, and the acoustic glass blocks out the engine noise. Neurologically, your brain is almost isolated from kinesthetic reality.
Oh, I see.
So when a driver engages with a phone screen in that environment, their brain temporarily suspends the reality that they are piloting 2 tons of heavy metal through a kinetic, dangerous space. They feel like they can just hit pause on the world outside the windshield.
Wow. So the AI traffic camera is basically useless against that mindset.
Completely useless, because AI cameras operate on rational logic. They act as a deterrent for logical rule breakers. Someone who is running late weighs the risk of a speeding ticket and decides to slow down.
Right, a conscious choice.
But logical deterrence completely fails against pure distracted audacity. The AI algorithm cannot predict a driver stopping at a 45-degree angle to check social media because that action defies all rational traffic modeling.
It's totally unpredictable.
Exactly. The camera assumes the driver wants to avoid a crash, but the driver, trapped in their digital bubble, has forgotten a crash is even possible.
Man, defying rational modeling perfectly sets up what happens when these distracted, isolated drivers finally snap out of it and hit the gas.
Because it gets much worse when they start moving.
Right. Because when they do, the maneuvers they pull literally seem to defy physics. If an AI camera can't deter them, and rational logic is out the window, the commute turns into a literal video game level where pure chance is your only safety net.
It really is a roll of the dice.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I'm looking at another July 13th log, this time from outside the Alpha Tuition Center. The reporter describes dodging a school kid who darts out blindly into the road.
Which is stressful enough on its own.
Right. So the reporter slams on the brakes. But immediately, an auto rickshaw flies by on the left side, with a 0.5-meter clearance of the side mirror. And simultaneously, another auto cuts in from the right.
Creating a complete momentary box around the reporter's vehicle.
Exactly, but it doesn't end there. The first auto executes a sharp, unannounced 360-degree U-turn right across the active lane. And before the reporter can even process that, the second auto copies the exact same maneuver.
Just unbelievable.
A second, sudden 360-degree U-turn. The source document literally dubs this a live road breakdance. Two heavy vehicles spinning in synchronized circles on a main carriage road.
It's a choreographed routine.
It is. Or consider the Pator Cemetery road hazard. The reporter is navigating an F-shaped elevated curve.
And for anyone trying to visualize that, an F-shaped curve isn't a smooth, sweeping turn. It involves sudden, sharp, intersecting angles that create massive blind spots. You really cannot see what is coming until it is already there.
Exactly. It's a geometric nightmare. And right on this blind F-curve, a Yamaha R15 V3 motorcycle comes flying up from behind.
On a blind curve.
Yes. The rider executes an extreme racetrack-style new-touch banking maneuver with a 45-degree head dip on a public blind curve. He airbrushes against the scooter's handlebar and barely misses the bumper of a white sedan.
That is absurdly dangerous.
And the log specifically notes that the rider didn't avoid a catastrophic multi-vehicle collision through skill. He pulled out of that dip and stabilized strictly due to chance. It was dumb luck.
Just pure luck.
Yeah. It's the exact same story at the Kinford Park blind curve, where a delivery truck darts out from a parking space into the main carriageway, relying entirely on the hope that no one is coming, rather than, actual visibility.
And that reliance on luck is what makes these roadways so volatile. If we analyze the risk assessment documented in these logs, we are seeing a complete externalization of danger.
Externalization? How so?
Well, when that Yamaha rider treats a blind F-curve like a MotoGP track or the delivery driver pulls out blindly, they are not just taking a personal risk. They are forcing everyone else on the road to manage the consequences of their recklessness.
Oh, I see. They are making it everyone else's problem.
Exactly. They force the surrounding drivers into a state of hypervigilance. The reporter only survived these encounters by employing what the Tuition Center log calls active mind reading.
Active mind reading. How does a driver actually use that in practice? It sounds a bit like trying to predict the future.
It is essentially rapid scenario generation. When the environment is that chaotic, you can no longer afford to react to what a vehicle is doing in the present moment.
Because by then it's too late.
Right. You have to preemptively guess what insane maneuver the driver might attempt next based on tiny environmental cues.
Like what kind of cues?
Well, you see a pedestrian looking over their shoulder, you actively map out the scenario where they step into traffic, you see an auto rickshaw slowing down inexplicably, you assume they are about to execute a 360-degree breakdance.
Wow.
Yeah, you aren't just reacting to the brake lights, you're reacting to the invisible possibilities. It is really the only viable countermeasure to this kind of chaotic choreography.
But keeping your brain in that state of active scenario generation has to take a massive toll. I mean, constantly anticipating the worst-case scenario must completely fry your nervous system.
Oh, absolutely. It leads to severe driver fatigue.
Which might explain the shift in these logs. As we go deeper into the source material, the incidents transition from maneuvers that are chaotic and accidental to encounters that feel deeply personal, hostile, and almost conspiratorial.
The psychological shift is very apparent.
Let's look at the Vancouver collision, where defensive driving seems to tip over into outright paranoia.
The Vancouver incident is a textbook study in spatial violation and the resulting psychological fallout.
Okay, so the traffic is heavily congested. It's crawling along. The reporter's vehicle is completely stationary. There is barely enough room on the right side for a two-wheeler to squeeze by.
So effectively zero clearance.
Right. But a white Maruti Baleno, driven by a middle-aged female, decides to force its way through this impossible gap. The log described it so vividly, she scraped past like a ship hitting an iceberg.
That is a visceral description.
It is. She strikes the reporter's mirror with significant force. The reporter honks heavily to signal the collision, and she just flees the scene. No apology, no acknowledgement. It is raw, unapologetic hostility.
And we need to look at what that does to the human brain. When a driver violates your physical space like that, physically striking your mirror and fleeing it triggers a primal fight or flight response.
Because you've essentially just been attacked.
Exactly. Your amygdala is activated. Even after the offending car is gone, your nervous system remains in a state of high arousal. Your baseline anxiety for the rest of the drive is elevated, which fundamentally alters your perception of everything around you.
That neurological shift explains so much about the ghost scooter incident at Pothincode.
Oh, that one is really unsettling.
Right. The reporter spots a scooter weaving through traffic. It has no front or rear license plates, making it totally untraceable. It's doing an illegal triple ride, carrying 3 people.
Which is already a red flag.
Yeah, but the detail that leaps off the page is the passenger behavior. As they weave through the traffic, the rear pillion passenger turns around and maintains an intense, prolonged, aggressive stare directly through the reporter's windshield.
Just locking eyes.
Yeah. And there's a nearly identical log from the Mudithara service road where a scooter did a sudden U-turn across the reporter's path, and the passenger locked eyes with this exact same hostile, fixed stare. Reading it, you feel like the reporter is being systematically targeted.
And that feeling of being hunted is a direct byproduct of that elevated baseline anxiety we just discussed.
Interesting.
Yeah, when your brain is in hyperarousal from a previous special violation, it starts desperately looking for threats. It engages in intense pattern recognition, sometimes finding malice where there might only be curiosity or general road rage.
It's connecting dots that might not be there.
Exactly. But that feeling of being targeted undeniably reaches its absolute climax in the Palathura tailgating incident.
Oh man, the Palathura bridge log is where the paranoia fully takes over. So the reporter's driving near the Kinfroy Apparel Park. A red car pulls out and starts tailgating them.
Uncomfortable, but normal enough on these roads.
Right. But as they hit a notoriously narrow bottlenecked bridge, a second red car, this one sporting a learner's sticker, joins in. Suddenly, the reporter is sandwiched between these 2 red cars in bumper-to-bumper traffic.
A literal trap.
Yes.
Right.
The second car starts executing highly aggressive, distracting maneuvers, complete boxing the reporter in with nowhere to escape. And right at the peak of this high-stress, claustrophobic squeeze, the reporter's dash cam mysteriously blacks out.
The timing is incredible.
It completely loses power and stops recording. When I read that, my mind immediately went to, like, a espionage thriller. Was this a targeted attack? Were these 2 red cars running a coordinated Wi-Fi deauthentication probe?
I love that you jumped straight to a cyber attack.
Well, I mean, think about it.
Yeah, I get it. For anyone unfamiliar, a Wi-Fi authentication probe is a digital attack where someone sends a spoofed command to a device, like a wireless dash cam, forcing it to disconnect from its network or just shut down entirely.
Right. It's a real tool used by hackers to blind security systems.
Yeah.
So it sounds totally plausible when you are boxed in by 2 aggressive vehicles acting in concert.
It sounds plausible when your heart rate is at 120 beats per minute, sure. But this raises an important question about how acute stress distorts our perception of reality.
How do you mean?
Well, when you are boxed in on a bridge and a vehicle is acting aggressively, your brain connects dots that create the most threatening narrative possible to ensure your survival. It wants to believe in the deauthentication probe because it validates the intense fear you are feeling.
So it's looking for the worst case scenario.
Right. But we have to look at the physical environment documented in the log.
The narrow, bottlenecked bridge.
Yes. They were stuck in a gridlock on a narrow, bumpy bridge, engaging in aggressive, jucky stop-and-go braking to avoid the tailgaters. The tactical breakdown provided in the log itself concludes that the physical jarring of the car simply knocked a loose 12V power adapter or a USB cable out of its slot. Yeah, the mundane truth is usually physical, not digital. It's a brilliant lesson in not letting highway paranoia and a hijacked amygdala override common sense.
Okay, fair enough. But even if it was just a loose cable, the physical threat of being sandwiched by aggressive drivers was still very real. I mean, the reporter still had to survive the encounter.
Absolutely. The perception of the technological threat might have been distorted by stress, but the physical danger of the tailgating was genuine. What's crucial is how the reporter responded.
How did they get out of it?
The log notes the use of tactical countermeasures. Specifically, the reporter safely slowed down to a crawl to break the dangerous synchronization with the aggressive vehicles.
Smart.
Yeah, you don't have to believe you are the target of a cyber attack to know that creating physical space is the absolute best way to de-escalate road hostility. You force the aggressive variable out of your immediate orbit.
You basically create space and let them become someone else's puzzle to solve. What an incredibly wild journey through these logs. So to summarize this for you, surviving the daily commute isn't just about memorizing the rulebook. It requires a profound psychological flexibility.
A completely different mindset.
Yeah, you have to master that active mind reading, constantly generating scenarios for what the breakdancing auto rickshaw or the go scooter might do next. You are driving for two, anticipating the chaos before it physically manifests.
Ultimately, this deep dive into raw, unfiltered traffic data reveals a humbling truth about our infrastructure. We can build perfect roads, we can paint clear geometric lines, and we can install the most sophisticated AI surveillance cameras available.
But it doesn't matter.
It doesn't, because human behavior remains the ultimate unpredictable variable. The right-of-way is merely a legal concept. Physics, momentum, and human irrationality are the physical realities. And as these logs clearly show, there is no algorithm or camera on Earth that can fully control or predict the sheer audacity of a distracted human mind.
Wow. And that actually leaves me with one final provocative thought for you to mull over as we wrap up. We're currently living in an era where massive tech companies are pouring billions into putting fully autonomous self-driving cars on our roads, right?
This self-driving revolution.
Yeah, and they're programming these highly advanced machine brains to be perfectly logical, to follow the rules flawlessly, and to implicitly trust the right-of-way. But after everything we've unpacked today from these Kerala traffic logs, how will a perfectly logical AI ever learn to navigate a world where auto rickshaws execute synchronized 360-degree breakdances in a live lane?
It's a great question.
How will a machine process a scooter driving counterflow on a pedestrian dirt path just to save 5 seconds? Will the AI learn to adapt to our absolute physics-defying chaos? Or will it just short-circuit trying to understand the irrationality of the human driver?
I guess we'll find out.
We will. So what does this all mean? It means until the robots figure out how to do active mind reading, the obstacle course is entirely yours. Keep those mirrors adjusted, keep your eyes on the road, and stay insanely curious and safe out there